and welcome back to the Worship Podcast. I can't believe it's worship. I'm Lester Sim.
And I'm Lester Ong.
And once again, this is the Worship Podcast for amateurs by amateurs. We are back with another episode with Dave.
He's getting tired of us.
Hey, but this is good because we realized, even though we didn't expect to be talking about those things for so long, but we realized that there's a lot of nitty-gritty details, practical things that we can kind of talk about. What do we do, right? Because these are questions that we get asked at times, like what do you do in team gatherings and what do you do in debriefs and all that kind of stuff. So we realized that there's actually a lot of things to get through and to talk about the heart behind it, right? And not just saying, well, do these things, here's a method, it's gonna work, but to talk about the heart behind it, why it's important. And I think that just naturally went into one episode.
Yep. But it is, I mean, we're talking about how to build an effective worship ministry, and the stuff we talked about in the previous episode, it goes very much to the core of what the worship ministry does week in, week out, right? The rehearsals, the gatherings, the communication frameworks.
Yep.
So I think it's helpful.
Yep.
I mean, this is what we live and breathe, right? So no wonder we talk so much about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here we go. We briefly talked about this, about the recruitment process. So, Dave, could you
Well, I think you said that one of the things that is critical for the team running properly was to make sure that the people who were brought in...
Yes, because you want to ensure that I think this came back to one of our quotes that you said that your rehearsal time is not for practice.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that, right? And I said that, well, that in part is dependent on the quality of your musicians and your singers that come in, right? If you kind of go, hey, you know what, we're just going to set people based on their heart of worship, which is important, is good. But if the skill set isn't there, then you might have to firefight quite a fair bit. So talk us through, what do you look for, or what are some things that you feel like you feel convicted to the bars that you set, you know, for a person to...
For how we recruit.
Yeah, for how we recruit.
Yeah. I guess before we get into that, I have to caveat this, all right? So this is how we do it. And in my mind, I feel like there are two ways that you can go about it, and we go about it the second way. Right, but not everyone has the luxury to go about it the way that we go about it. Okay. So the first way is you actually build a worship team from the ground up, and that is what typically happens in grassroots kind of ministries that are smaller, youth groups, for example, stuff like that, where you take somebody who has minimal levels of like skill, but like maybe high potential, and you work with that person, and it's very time consuming, very invested, and you build a worship team out of that.
Wait, so that one's like hey, you got a great heart, you got great potential, you got groove, here's a bass, learn how to play. And we'll teach you.
Yes.
Just
and then it's like
up.
A ton of rehearsals together, a ton of like coaching, all that kind of stuff. I think we've probably all been through those kind of seasons back in the day. You served our time and done our due
when we were younger. Yeah.
When we were younger. So how we approach it now is the second way, which I think is a bit more of a luxury that perhaps now as a slightly larger church, we have the luxury of being able to do. So I got to caveat that with that. So, okay, so how we currently recruit people is we are quite well off in terms of worship musicians and worship team people within at least this campus of our church. That means that actually the places for people to serve are very few and far between. And so to take people on means reducing someone else's ministry time within this team to a level where it might actually start becoming less meaningful for them to be part of the team. It's something like serving 2 times in 3 months, maximum, that kind of stuff. So with that being said, now our standards have risen over the years and have got pretty high, almost to the point where for someone to join our team, they already have to be, and this is a really high level, where we are currently, and almost be able to slot pretty much directly right into the team.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's why I say this is not something that I recommend for all worship teams to just take hook, line, and sinker and implement. The only people that we would probably make exception to this for are the people that we talked about in previous episodes about our next generation of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they may not yet be at the Sunday service level of serving, but there's a bit more grace extended to let them get there because they're already part of the team. They've got their foot in the door in that sense. Okay, so our actual recruitment process, very simple.
Sorry, wait. Before you say that, I think it's also important because as you're saying that, I think something came to mind that might tie into this as well. It's that I think it's good to lay the backdrop of how our church, we've got quite a fair number of people coming in from other churches who have, in that sense, done their dues in other churches. So we do get like the refined musicians and singers already here, which is a luxury. Yeah, and that's why we can afford to do this. There are many churches out there, like what you said, like you're getting new converts, they don't know how to play instruments and stuff. But we're getting very experienced people who have served like 20 years in another church in another country. And because we are, for now, we have quite a lot of...
Where are you going with this?
No, I'm saying, hey, wait. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I've heard it said that FCC is a church of migrants. Is that right? Am I
sure?
Yeah. So we got people coming in from like Singapore, Malaysia, and they've served in Singaporean churches, Malaysian churches. So when they come here, it's like
So historically, we have been very migrant driven.
Yes. So as such, this is the pool of people we have.
Yes.
Yep. So yes, continue on. So your recruitment process.
Yes. So the current recruitment process is our front door is an application form. So usually someone finds a way to email me through our different websites and stuff like that.
You make it seem like you're trying not to be contacted.
I actually from a worship standpoint, I do not advertise at all now.
Yeah.
It's just more people, honestly, to decline. Just because we're full.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they find a way to email me. I usually send them an application form. That application form has a bunch of questions on it, questions about their background, both personal in terms of like what they do, how long they've been a Christian, their faith background, have they been baptized, what church were they from previously, even questions like, if you left your previous church, why did you leave? And then it has questions to do with their understanding of what worship is, their understanding of the gospel, and that's quite telling. Most of the time you get pretty vanilla answers, to be honest, but once in a while you get a really good one and you're like, ooh, I like this person. Let's have a chat. And then questions about their worship team involvement previously, if they've had any experience, and questions as to what their involvement they would expect and what their involvement within this team to be like. So that's where people indicate, I've served in these roles before. I'd like to serve in this role here. I'd like to see if I could become a worship leader at some point in the future, stuff like that. It just opens up the conversations for when we actually meet this person. Along with that application form, it has a few details about the responsibilities and the requirements of joining this ministry. So it's just that as they... It's more like an acknowledgement. Like, I acknowledge that I have read that it requires serving this amount of times, the rehearsals on this day, all this kind of stuff. That usually application form comes in now with a request for them to send us a video of themselves on their instrument or singing.
Is this new?
This is new. This is implemented within maybe after COVID. So COVID, we had no way to it was much harder to meet in person.
I don't remember having to do this.
Yeah. It was, much more recent.
I remember like 11 pages or something. Like it was a long application.
No, it's a 2-page document, my guy.
No, man, I remember it was pretty long. Like
it was never 11 pages, unless you just wrote essays. And
maybe. Yes, he's quite prone to that.
But it's a 2-page questionnaire.
Okay.
Yes, I can show you the document now to prove it is not.
Anyway. Okay, good. Two pager. Okay, yep.
Yeah, but Now it comes with a request. Hey, send us a video of yourself singing a song from our song library or playing along with the song. And that way it saves us the next step to whittle down the pool a little bit. Because the next step after the application form comes back is you do a bunch of referee checks, background checks, call up CG leaders, make sure they're plugged into the church because that's really important for us in terms of making sure that they're attending a Connect group and all that kind of stuff. And then we invite them in for an audition. And the reason that we want to kind of whittle down the pool is the audition takes up a lot of man hours, not just from the leaders, but band members and stuff who have to stay behind after rehearsal to help a person audition. So what an audition looks like for us is they get given the chords and a song from one of our song libraries. So something that we play frequently and often within our church, something that they should be relatively familiar with if they're a congregant member. And then they play with our team after the band rehearsal. So the entire team will be there, maybe just one vocal, and then whatever their role is taken out and they slot into that role. It's a pretty high bar, like I said, right now, and it's quite intimidating, particularly if you don't come from that background of serving in a larger worship team. Yeah. But it is the best way to know at face value if someone will slot right into your team.
Yeah.
At this point in time. Like I said, we're really picky right now, so that's why I don't recommend this practice for everybody. Post that, depending on how they do, there's usually an understudy process. That's regardless of how good they are. Because the understudy process serves more than just it's not meant to be a training ground process right now. For us, it's a team acclimatization or assimilation project. So we're seeing how faithful they are to the responsibilities of the team. So if they make it in as an understudy, they are asked to attend all the rehearsals. They will practice with the band during rehearsals, but they won't serve on the Sunday. They'll join us for the debriefs after the services. They'll be asked to attend all of our team gatherings. And so that understudy period is just a chance to just suss out for real after you've heard all the referees and had a chat with the person. Will this person commit to this team? And are they getting along well with people in our team? Like, are there red flags coming up, interpersonal relationships, issues that need to be solved and sorted out? And it gives both that person and us a level of comfort as to, cool, I can serve here. And then it's just a conversation that takes place, usually between 2 to 6 months. And then they get to serve if everything goes well.
And the phrase understudy is not the usual understanding, is it? Where if the understudy singer loses their voice or gets a cold, then you step into that role.
No. Why did we call it understudy initially? I think initially it was because they used to shadow somebody on stage when doing rehearsals.
Yep.
Yeah. So back when we first implemented it, they would just stand right next to the person who they were understudying.
Yep.
The entire rehearsal, watch, learn, ask questions and stuff like that. Maybe get a chance to play, swapping it out. And so that's just.
And if you're a singer, you're also singing exactly the same parts as like that one person, right? That you're shadowing. Yeah. Sorry to say this, but thus far what you've given us is here's a way we do things that I do not recommend. So what would you recommend? What would you recommend to churches out there?
Okay, so if this works really well for us in our current context. If you're in a setting, for example, where you do not have that many members, or a church which is slightly smaller, I think the standards need to be lowered a little bit. Advertisements, broadcasting the need can go out there, and then what you're mostly looking for is availability and humility. I think in a person. Skill set to a degree. You have to make sure I think I can't remember who came up with this principle, but it's a base level of competency has to be there because it's easier to get something like a 5 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10 than to get a 3 out of 10 to put in the same effort. A 3 out of 10 and try to get them to 5 out of 10. Do you know what I mean? It's just like it's a percentage game, something like that. So the humility to be able to take on feedback, to talk, and to have frank conversation, and the availability to put in what is required to work with someone, then becomes the highest, more crucial in the recruitment process. And then from there, the back end stuff has to end up changing. How you run your rehearsals can't be as maybe efficient as we run it. It has to be more training. It becomes more training led.
Mm.
Does that make more sense?
Yes.
So for us, it's like everything's smick. We've got everyone coming together.
Yeah.
We just put stuff together. We're more like business. It's like we just sort stuff out. In smaller teams, when you're growing, it has to become more training centric, more skill development, more mentoring, more coaching.
Yeah. But I guess also that principle of saying you want to accept someone that can slot right in, that can also apply to smaller churches, because the standard of music might not necessarily be like, wow, you're doing all these fancy things because you're keeping things simple. But then someone who is able to slot in then is also someone who is probably not as accomplished.
Presumably, yes.
Yeah, so I guess that can possibly apply to, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if the general average is of a slightly lower musical standard, just because of the amount and quality,
The pool of people
that you've got of the volunteers, then slotting right in looks different. Though there are also churches who have like really small worship teams, but the guys on the worship team are like aces. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they've got a really high standard, and slotting into that team, even like a church our size, a lot of our guys wouldn't slot into that team.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that context is really critical. I've been in smaller worship teams as well, and you have to decide what level of competency you can work with, given the pool of people that you can get in your church. Because I think the danger you have is if you compromise on that, the whole team goes backwards. We used to just let anyone onto the team, and we had one woman who sounded like a man when she sang. and literally the sound guy would spend so much time turning her down only for her to go, I can't hear myself, and turn her up and then turn her down again. So there's arguments back and forth with the sound desk, pauses in rehearsals regularly, and actually the whole team feels it. So if you don't get that mix and balance right with who you let on, it's detrimental.
yes,
Yeah.
To which I would say to people who run worship ministries, learn very quickly how to have hard conversations and to do them well with grace. Because the longer you tarry because of your discomfort, the entire team ends up suffering for it.
That's a real leadership issue, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. And do you reckon that's the job of the worship leader or the job of the worship pastor?
Ultimately, it will always be the worship pastor's responsibility. The worship leader has to wear some of it at some points in time, but I think they're shielded from the toughest parts of it, because the worship leader will never make the call as to say, hey, I don't think this person, like, we'll never have to come up to somebody and say, I don't think this ministry is the right fit for you. That's a higher level leadership conversation.
Well, I suppose in the meantime, the worship leader has to just be a bit more measured in their encouragement. You certainly don't want to let this woman who sounds like a man being encouraged all the time. Like, well done, you sound fantastic.
But there are churches who they want to abide by that ethos, right? They want to be really encouraging, no matter what. You know, they have that kind of philosophy. It's like, let's just encourage everybody to serve. However, with the little that you have, just serve. So it's very tricky.
Wow. I guess it's to each their own, and with whatever path you take, you got to be ready to just pay the cost, whatever it is.
Well, I think Pastor Benny uses a phrase which he often says over and over again, which is square pegs in square holes, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Round pegs in round hole.
The question is, who's telling the square peg that they're trying to fit into a round hole?
The worship pastor.
But I think part of the conversation could be that there's nothing wrong with a desire to serve. In fact, we should encourage a desire to serve.
Amen to that.
Then the question is, serve where? And it doesn't mean that everyone who wants to serve in a particular ministry ought to serve in that particular ministry, because I've met people who have been told they're not suitable for the worship ministry, and they actually find a lot of joy serving in a different area. And suddenly they go, oh, this is meant to be where I should be.
Yeah, I'm just thinking this just ties in with a broader church culture in terms of like whether or not you put the worship ministry on a pedestal. Because if you're turning away somebody in a church where the worship ministry is like coveted, right? It's like, this is what I'm living for kind of thing. And you turn them away, it's like, oh, your hopes and dreams are crushed, man. But you kind of go, hey, the worship team is just like every other ministry, is equally as important. If we're turning you away from this, has something else out there that needs you, right? It's a church culture thing.
But there's also a creative element which makes it difficult. So, for example, if I get shanked from the cafe ministry because I make crap coffees, it's like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But then, let's say I sing, and then someone goes to me, I don't think, that it's a bit more of a personal thing to overcome.
Because it's like your craft is part of you too, right? Yeah.
My built-in pipes weren't weren't good enough.
All right, next question. Here we go. We're moving on to something pretty different, eh? The one about, so how do you actually integrate our two younger ministries, Kinetic and Vibe, and what are some benefits that you've seen? And what sort of collaborations have come out from that?
What do you reckon, Lester?
You're the guest. You answer.
I have thoughts on this. All right, so it has progressed with time. So when we first set out to do it, I think the main big change that happened for us were just a couple things, which was that their worship director became part of our leadership team, whereas they were separate before. So they became part of our leadership team, joined us for all of our monthly meetings and stuff like that. And so they had a voice at the table. And during our leadership gatherings, we would ask them specifically about their ministry, just so that there's updates and information starting to flow both ways. Secondly is they began to be invited to our team gathering. So before that, they weren't. They had their own... I think they had their own little meeting.
Yes.
And then we had ours. So those were the first changes that we saw. So that was a little bit awkward at first, but it was good. A good awkwardness to breach and a necessary one. And then over time, it has looked like more and more collaboration at different levels. So they got integrated within our sections, which was also a very awkward first meeting. So their basis joined the rest of our basis during our section gatherings, etc., etc., etc. Some level of relationship was built there. Bondings began to happen. Conversations about training and how to get better began to happen, and naturally and organically, which was great. And so now we have a level of unstructured mentoring that happens within the team, I think, where within the sections, there'll be different people asking different people for advice on how to get better, how to grow, which I think is really great. We've seen a lot of fresh ideas and fresh blood come in from the younger people. I think one of the things of serving in ministry for a really long period of time is that it's easy to get stale or get a bit more encrusted in your own ideas. And so it takes a young person, vibrant, full of energy, and who doesn't care about the boundaries that you've set personally for yourself to come in and suggest, why don't we do this? And then you have to grapple with it, which is a really good thing.
Yeah.
A really good thing. Uncomfortable, yes, but really good for everybody.
Yeah.
What else?
Oh, I think just on that point, it's sociologists would definitely say that the young people are the culture setters.
Yes.
And so it's important, I think, for us to include them because we do get crusty as we grow older, and we have to really work against ourselves to actually go. Well, we think we know better, but maybe we should explore what other people think.
Yeah.
And so certainly having young people means that we actually keep evolving the culture of the ministry, and we don't actually suffocate everyone in the process.
Yeah.
Sorry, could you give maybe about 2 sentences? You talked about the leadership meetings. I don't think we talked about this before. So for our listeners, they'll be like, well, what is that?
Our leaders within the WLT, so we have like a cross-section of leadership within the WLT, which is our leadership team, worship leadership team. I think it's been called for the longest time.
Yes.
We have our worship directors. These lead downwards. They essentially look after their little departments where they're basically like zones or events or gatherings. So our youth group has a worship director, so a youth worship director, kinetic worship director, Vibe, so on, so on. Willerton, different campuses have it. And then laterally, we have sections. These sections are based off of roles. So drum section leader, keyboard section leader, guitar section leader, sound section leader, etc., etc. So we're kind of, everyone is covered, hopefully, at least 2 ways. Yeah. And so all of us gather together because I think those leaders on both levels are the ones who really are the brains trust and the ones who drive things forward. So that happens every month, or used to happen every month. We're also cutting that back to make room for different things.
But I think it's important because it's a way of reaching across the entire ministry, as artificial as that particular section is, but it just means that intergenerationally, all the drummers get to have a point where they get together. In those sections. And then the worship pastor gets the accountability to understand what's going on within that particular section as well when the WLT gather.
It's been really good. And to be honest, it's part of having those people is really good because as a team grows, you just need people who have a select few people that they are assigned to look after and really shepherd and care for. Otherwise, it won't happen. Especially like if you're solo running a worship director or a worship pastor and expected to know everything that's going on in 50 people's lives and help different people in different musicianship roles to improve. That's just a weight that's impossible to carry.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I have to say there are limits to this, just in case everyone listening goes, oh, wow, this is great. Let's do this, right? One limit is not every section leader operates the same.
Yes.
And so some are more invested and others are less so. Yes. And not criticizing anyone in particular, but like, for example, we saw our drum section was really successful for a season because the drum head was very invested in the team. And so they gathered together at drum sheds. They did lots of stuff together. And when that happened and we saw the outcome of that, we had a really bonded drum section, intergenerational drum section, where older were passing skills to younger, inspiring each other. And I think it was a really good thing.
Yeah.
The other limitation, so the opposite is when a section leader isn't as involved and then you still have fragmentation within that particular section.
Yeah.
So that's one limitation. And the other limitation is once you set these sections, it's very hard to include other instruments. So we toyed with the idea of violins, for example, and we go, okay, if we had a violinist, where would we put them? And so that became a limiting factor for that sort of growth in our ministry as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Agree. Structural problems.
Yeah, so that'll be for another day.
Oh, what? Episode 4.
Yeah. I mean, I think this intergenerational thing is now part of our vision for the church as well. So I think it's quite good that the worship ministry sort of began that work maybe accidentally.
We're prophetic, man.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We're
exactly.
prophetic.
It was prophetic. We heard from the Lord and that was it.
I arguable.
No wonder people put the worship ministry on a pedestal. I had a few quotes from Roz Pasley, but
here we go.
I'm not going to read them out because I can't get the correct context to squeeze them in. But I just wanted to encourage our listeners, if you wanted a really good book on intergenerational integration, Messy Church by Roz Pasley is excellent. Roz Pasley was the worship pastor of New Life Church, a mega church in Colorado Springs. And the next generation ministry was called Desperation Band. And a lot of those guys are leaders. Glenn Packiam was in Perth recently with Alpha. So he's become a church leader in his own right, but he was a Desperation Band member back in the day.
Nice.
Yeah, so Roz Pasley was very instrumental, I think, in making sure that next generation of worship was looked after and integrated, and it took on a life of its own. And now he's a pastor of another church in his own right. So read Messy Church. I highly recommend it.
Nice. I haven't read it. I just might read it.
Yeah, you should.
I have a list of like 5 or 6 books to read, so that'll be the 7.
500 or 600.
Okay, one of the other elements of an effective worship ministry, I would say, is the song library. And you've talked a few times about the song library.
Yep.
And tell us about, and I think you've touched on this in 2 episodes ago. Why did you establish a song library? And then after that, can you tell us about what goes into it and how do you deal with adding new songs?
Yep. The idea of a song library, I think we covered in previous episodes. The main purpose of it was to give a song bank for both the congregation to have a level of familiarity with the songs that they sing on a week-to-week basis in church, to be able to worship well to it. Also, to help our band and our team reach a level of excellence, because there are standard songs that we sing on a week-to-week basis, which means they don't have to keep learning a new song every single weekend on the whims of the worship leader. So it was a very common sense decision that we ended up making for those purposes. The songs that are part of the song library, when we initially launched it, we wanted 30 songs on the song library. That has actually ebbed and flowed over the years. I think it's grown up to even like 55 songs at one point. Nobody complained yet, and then I called it. But the songs that are in that library need to have a few characteristics. One of them is that they need to be vetted from a theological perspective, so that they are saying the right things, because as we all know, worship is spiritual formation for our church. It is the language that the church uses to worship God, and informs what people believe about God, even more so than sermons. So it has to be vetted from that perspective, and so that's a big task. And however you do it within your church matters. From us, ultimately, I get to make the call. Usually I'm asking a few different people what they think. The worship leaders are usually the ones who come up with new song suggestions to add to the song library. And then so I have a list, I think, of 30 to 50 songs that have just been suggestions. As soon as anyone suggests it, it goes into that list, and then it's the list that I listen to in the car. And every time I choose a song, I'm just like going through and vetting. But the second criteria that needs to go into this song list is to try and understand the season of what the church is going through and what it needs to be able to express in its worship to God. And so it needs to be able to have that language within the songs. So there needs to be a balance of what we would say are more objective theological songs. These are songs that I think our church finds more like as it's like comfort red meat, which is like the songs of God's greatness, God's holiness, God's worthiness, the different characteristics of God, God's goodness. Like when we sing that, like our church really engages with that. But it also needs to be able to express different elements of worship which are just as important, which are not characteristics of God, but our response towards God. So our surrender towards God, our desire for more of Him, our yielding to Him, our love for Him, all of that has to be weaved in. And so it's a careful balance, and it's not always perfect, and we go through swings and seasons. But bearing those two principles in mind helps to keep us on track. And then in terms of what actually ends up making it into the song library in the end, another factor which goes into it is actually how the song is going with the church across the world. Yeah. So sometimes you like a song speaks to a person, like a worship leader, or even myself, really personally, and you're like, wow, this is really powerful, but you just don't know. It's always a gamble, and that's the risk that we take every time we introduce a song.
Yep.
It's like, we don't know how our congregation will take it. Will they be able to latch onto it? Will they be able to worship through it? Or was it just something that was meant for you? And so it's hard to separate that sometimes. So yeah, looking across the world and seeing, okay, so largely across the world, what songs are people resonating with? Not just are popular in terms of like, hype, but what are people really resonating and seem to be able to really worship well with? And that becomes a consideration as well.
Is there some form of a forward-looking aspect to this? Like, and it might not necessarily be prophetic in a spiritual sense, like, because you did say you want to understand what season your church is going through, but that's almost like you're reacting on the spot, right? Like you're like, okay, like we're going through a season, we're talking about like, say, God's faithfulness, so let's pick songs that resonate with that. Do you actually look ahead to say the plan for what's going to be preached through the year, just so you kind of line up certain songs so that nicely it coincides and you're not like singing about something after it's passed, right? Or is there a prophetic element to this where you kind of go like, God, where are we going to be at, like in the next year, 6 months or 2 years, and then you kind of introduce songs that bring you there?
Yeah, there's, to an extent, it's both, and it's also trying to read the moment as the moment is unfolding. Sometimes you're not prophetic enough to know. Typically, sometimes we would try to. Before, I have tried to line song releases with series that we run, and the emphases of those series. Sometimes it's literally come from conversations that different staff are having in the back end about the spiritual atmosphere of what our church is going through, and what needs to be expressed, whether that's repentance or intimacy, or people need to swing to the other end and be more, fix their eyes on the glory of God, whatever it is. So sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's just literal conversations that I have with different people, even worship leaders along the ground, about what songs are speaking to them and stuff like that. So all of that comes together. There's no real one way that I think we do it, but it's just keeping your ear out and trying to discern what the Spirit is doing.
Well, I think that's the best kind of prophecy, so to speak, unless you're in the order of Isaiah and Jeremiah. A New Testament prophetic unction, I think, is best done in the company of others and confirmed. And I like that our church does pitch its sermon series, for example, for the next 52 weeks. So we kind of see what it's going to look like anyway. And so our prophecy is not left field and unexpected in that sense. And what about new songs then? How do you introduce new songs and add them to the library now that you've decided on one?
Yes.
How do you actually get the church to get used to it?
Yeah, so what we do we're pretty intentional with how we introduce a song during the Sunday services, and how frequently we do it. So we try to introduce a song and make sure that it's repeated within the first month of its release 3 times. So there's no super hard, fast rules about it in terms of like it has to be the first 3 weeks or anything. But as long as it's repeated a total of 3 times within the first 4 weeks, we're happy. Just to make sure that it's had time to settle into the psyche of people. People have had a chance to dwell on the lyrics. People are getting familiar with the tunes and the arrangements and stuff like that. And during those moments, we try our best not to go too creative with any musical arrangements with it, just because that will create a level of unfamiliarity with the congregation, who are trying to guesstimate, how come the song is different today?
I found that if we truly believe that worship is an activity of the entire church and the congregation are the main drivers of the worship, then using a song library is entirely appropriate for that. It's saying these are the songs that the congregation will use.
Yeah.
So it builds that familiarity. I've seen some churches now who actually publish on social media the song list for this Sunday.
Yeah.
Before the Sunday, so that the congregation can rehearse themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that really makes the point that the congregation is the owner of the worship, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful trend that's working around the world. It used to be that the worship ministry loved to have sleight of hand and go, aha, surprise! And everyone goes, woo, that was a great surprise medley,
Yeah.
But I think taking that surprise element and bringing familiarity is really respecting the congregation as the bringers of offering and worship.
Yes,
Nice.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I do have a follow-up question. Have you ever had to... So after you've introduced a song and you've sung it like 3 times, have you ever had to go like, well, that was a bad song. Let's cut it out.
Yep, definitely. That's why I say it's a gamble.
Yeah. So how do you know when to say, hey, you know what? Call it for what it's worth. We try it. And
Usually, you don't necessarily have to make the call. The worship leaders already get the sense because they know when they lead it, they are getting direct feedback as to whether the congregation is engaging with it or not.
Yeah.
And you do it enough times and you just know, the worship leaders just know, this song is not working. And it just never gets picked again. It just fades off naturally into the ether.
Yeah, it's still in the song library,
Correct.
right? Yeah, but it just never gets
Correct. We
picked.
still got a couple of those on our song library.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's okay. That's fine. I think it's just, it's part of just moving forward. But I would rather try and fail in this regard than be too careful, I think.
Yeah. All right. I think we're actually closing in to an end with 2 last questions.
Oh, yes.
So second last one, here we go. So what would you say to someone who's listening to this and is considering going into full-time worship ministry?
Ooh. Why are you smiling at me, Lester?
I don't know. You say don't.
It's a trap. When I was thinking about this question, my answers are actually more personal. So they're less to do with actual worship ministry itself. They're more like things that a person going into worship ministry will, or full-time ministry or full-time worship ministry would have to deal with.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I would say, is that they need to guard their personal walk with God. Because it's very easy once you enter into ministry to blur the lines between what is personal versus what is professional. And so it's very quick, it's very easy, and becomes very difficult very fast to figure out, am I doing this simply because I love God? Or am I doing this because I have something to prepare for? Or because I feel like this is what a good pastor or a good worship director should do?
Interesting.
So guarding that time somehow in your own way is going to be really important. So I would say do what you can to make sure that you keep personal moments with God and just personal moments with God. So moments that are just for you and God. And I would also say, in the same vein, if you're a worship person in ministry, you need to learn to turn off your professional brain when it's not required. So I think a byproduct of being in the worship ministry, even actually if you're not in on staff, is that you begin to diagnose things that maybe is some part of your role to diagnose at some points in time, but it just becomes the default. So, for example, it is very easy for me to come into a Sunday service and immediately go into what's wrong or what's happening or what needs improvement for next time.
Yeah.
I think that's every worship leader's nightmare.
Yeah. And I'm sure it happens for even outside of worship, like Pastor Benny, every time he hears a sermon, I'm sure he's thinking about how he can rearrange it and make it better, or like, should have used this illustration there or something. I think it's an occupational hazard when you enter into ministry even more so. And so, and sometimes the role requires that even more from you, because you get asked these questions like, what did you think? What do you reckon? What do you think we should do here? And then it's you have to have a little bit of security to say, I wasn't listening for that. You know, like I was in the worship set and I was just worshiping God. And so I didn't hear your transition.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. So learning to turn off your professional brain when it's not required, and just to be a congregation member and to receive and participate as much as you lead, I think is what I would say to someone considering going to full-time ministry. The second thing I would say is that learn to surround yourself with good people. Because ministries are... I think a lot of people go into ministry thinking that they are it in terms of, I'm going to be the main driver of everything that's going on. But good ministries have always been built on good teams more than good individual leaders. And so learning to develop and engage with really good people is what makes ministry a joy and makes longevity and sustainability and impact multiply. And so, learning to see people's giftings, encourage them with it, take them, empower them, give them a go, coach them, develop them, and then let them fly, I think is going to be a really powerful tool in your tool belt in this ministry and in every other ministry. Yeah, so raise good worship leaders, raise good leaders around you. Don't try to do everything yourself. Ask for people's opinions and stuff like that. Third, I prepared this time, is to think beyond the actual Sunday in terms of the output. So everyone looks at the final product and thinks about the set list, how that was run and everything, but think deeper in terms of building systems and practices that help to support what will set everybody up to win at the end of the day. So that just helps to relieve the load week after week on stuff that is repetitive, administrative, things that can be done. If you can set up a system to make it work and take that off of your mind space on a week-to-week basis, that will help you a lot. So that's stuff for us, is stuff like the song library. That's stuff like setting expectations for our team, our rehearsal times, exactly how that's going to function. When do our vocals come in? Who is the one who makes the call on these on musical arrangements versus vocal arrangements versus changing songs out? All these systems and things need to come into play. It's much more involved than what you see at surface level on a Sunday.
Yeah, it's like securing the beachhead so you can advance.
Yes, a good analogy. Yeah.
All right, on to our very last question. What are some tips that you would give to someone who's taking on leadership in the worship ministry? Or what would you say to someone who has been leading for a while?
Actually, we've alluded to a bunch of these things, but I will crystallize them for us in this question.
Yes, please.
Right. The first one is, I would advise them to fight to keep the focus in worship ministry spiritual, because I think it's very easy for us to become logistical, and the longer that you spend in ministry, you begin to rely on your logistical expertise in order to make something happen. So because you've seen it happen before, you know who needs to be involved in what, you arrange stuff. And the spiritual element of, God, what is it that you are doing? How do you want me to be different, even though I'm doing the same thing that I've done for X amount of years before? That element can get sidelined very quickly. In the same way, you can also begin to lead out of empty very quickly. It's just out of experience more than it is out of overflow. So I would say make sure that you fight to keep your focus spiritual at all times. The second one is, I would say, build deeper than just building moments, and try to build it generational instead. Building moments, let's say on a Sunday service or week after week, is great and it has a level of impact, but what will multiply that impact is people who can multiply those moments, people who carry the same heart for worship, people who have been formed and who know what worship is about. That is going to carry on for generations to come, not your really, really sick arrangement for I Thank God on Sunday. Praise the Lord for that. That's really cool anyway. But I would say that.
Hang on, before you move on to the next one, I think this really ties in with like the whole being a worship ministry in a intentional disciple making church, because this is how we can disciple people around us, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually, it's a main thing. If you see worship as disciple making, then it becomes the main gist of what you're doing when you're leading worship.
Yeah.
You're just using worship as the vehicle for you to make disciples, both in the congregation and in your team.
Yeah, makes sense. Sorry, yes, I interrupted.
Yeah, Pastor Benny will be happy with that answer.
Except we can't say worship is the primary vehicle.
Yes, that's what you said. I was like,
Give the listeners some context for that.
No, better not. Just take that as said, and you can mull over that.
Yes, everything can. Never mind. Yeah, okay. And the other thing that I would give as advice would be to, especially in the worship ministry, is to learn to ground your security in Jesus and not in people, or in God and not in people. In a ministry like this, where, in any ministry where there is leadership, there's always going to be a level of insecurity that comes with it, because you have to deal with people in terms of, will they like my ideas? Will they like what I have to say? How will they push back? What will they think of me as a leader? All that kind of stuff. People are very necessary. They are crucial to the ministry, but grounding your security in them is a death sentence for you, because you will begin to either people please because you're trying to get everyone to like you, or you will become obstinate and just like ignore what everyone has to say and be like, people don't matter at all. So that balance is going to be difficult. And you need to be able to separate yourself from that, even though you love people, that you don't love their applause or you don't love their approval, and you don't ground yourself in those things. And that'll help you to do everything that you need to do, whether that's having hard conversations with people about their place in the team, about their behavior, trying to manage the tension between being someone's leader versus someone's friend, all of that kind of stuff. Your security in the worship ministry needs to come from the right place.
Wow, that's easier said than done.
Oh,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, that's so tough to do.
Episode 4.
Which is why, what do you say to someone who wants to become a worship pastor? Don't.
Yeah, but I actually think what you said, the last one, while it's so difficult, it's so necessary.
Yeah.
I do feel like if you've been leading for a while, or if you're a leader and you're listening to this, like the earlier you kind of get this sorted or you start working on this, I think the easier it is to flow into whatever God wants to do in and through you.
Yeah.
When you are so consumed with what people say, wow, it's so tough.
Yeah.
Like, it's just it's like one step forward, two steps back and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's actually super difficult. Very easy to say.
Yeah,
very
man.
difficult. Because like the reality is, even though you say it and you're like, yeah, I know where to find my security, I think it still doesn't make it easy to hear bad things come your way, or to hear snarky remarks,
Yeah, man.
or people complain about your leadership, or people disagree with you on this and stuff like that, or so it's a battle that you will have to end up facing, and you'll have to find a way to overcome that.
Gotta say, it took me 55 years to learn that, and I'm only 47.
We'll wait another 8 years, man. It'll be golden.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, we appreciate you sharing your insight with us and your journey, your experience. And I think what we have done in these past few episodes would be really helpful for listeners who are listening and kind of going like, okay, how do we do this? We want to say that this is what has worked for us. And we're not here to say do this for whatever context you're in. No, but still it's important to have wisdom to go, okay, how can we take these principles and possibly apply it in your specific context? Yes. So otherwise, we thank you for your time, for listening in with us. We hope you have enjoyed this. I guess it's a mini series, you could say, but it has come to an end. The Dave series. If you haven't followed, subscribed, if there's anything that you've been blessed by and you want to comment, feel free to. We'll respond. But we've really appreciated people who have come to us and told us how much they've been blessed by this. And so we do hope that this is useful to you. But otherwise, we thank you, and we will see you on the next one.
See
without
you next
Dave.
time.
Yes, see you.
See you. So long. Farewell. Thanks, gents.